Welcome to Academy Live. Now, a new year sometimes means a new you. So, are you looking for a job this year? Is your company hiring? What does the job market look like? Stay tuned on this episode and you'll hear some helpful tips and learn about what's trending in 2025.
Hey, good to see you, Bessie. Good to
Woo!
see you, Rex.
Yeah, this
Yes.
is fun.
Yeah, looking forward to
Well,
this.
I've got a few trends that are coming up that I want to run by you. So let's take a look. The first one might not be that surprising to you, but according to Forbes, one trend might be that jobs are wanting more people to come back into the office physically in person. And the hybrid model, we've seen some success for employees, but we're seeing more and more requests for return to office in person. Rex, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, the first one is I have a niece that moved away from the office and now she's
Mm.
too far away and they're demanding now that everybody come back and she's having to leave the job, right? I don't think there was ever any promise that if you moved away you could continue forever to work remotely, but she definitely is getting surprised right now. Amazon had everybody come back recently,
Mm.
and the traffic patterns completely changed. Right, a company like Amazon bringing everybody back in,
Oh, yeah.
like everybody had to re-figure out when the best time to
Mm.
leave the house is so they can get to Seattle.
See, and that's where I think it's really interesting is, I mean, you think of the obvious, the primary responses, right? But I think that's examples of, secondary, tertiary effects, kind of these ripple effects of, okay, yeah, but what about that? I think, it's obvious kind of talking about the culture. So many employees now are used to it or kind of demanding it. I've seen, in peer group conversations, there's been a lot of talk about candidates will basically say, I'm only interested in remote work. And when in our history, has that been such capacity for them to kind of demand or set that, you know? And so that's kind of more of an obvious conversation, but now we're dealing with the come back to work. Uh, yeah, what was the policy? What is a lot of people are moving, exploring, the ability to work remotely. Bessie, I'm kind of curious if you have any strong thoughts. I know you've had some conversations with some people recently as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's so much value to being in person and getting to interact and having those, not
Mhm.
planned out conversations, and having those benefits of really getting to know people in person. But I know from my experience working at Pax8, where most of our companies remote, getting to interact and getting to know people virtually, I still feel like I have those strong connections. I can still like message people and find out about those different things that I would maybe have at like a water cooler type of conversation. So I
Mm.
see I see the pros and cons of each. I think it's definitely difficult to get back to it if you've been remote full time to go back in person full time. So
Yeah.
hopefully there's some transition plans in there.
Yeah, I tell you, when I'm in the office in Denver and I do sort of have something that we call a collision, right? When we have a collision with somebody else from a different part of the org, that I would never like normally like reach out to them. Hey, can we chat for a minute? I have a question that's something
Mm.
trivial, but it's amazing. You run into them in the hallway and you have that quick conversation, and it triggers something that you didn't think would have come from it, and now you're having a very impactful conversation that never would have
Yeah.
happened.
The drive-by meetings are definitely something I missed from back in the day that were really, really impactful. Bessie, I know you had a couple other things, some other things that are kind of changing or trends. What else you got?
Yeah. So the next one is that cover letters in the application process. Cover letters may be a thing of the past very soon. There's less and
Uh,
less cover letters being required. What are your thoughts, Chris, about cover letters?
Oh yeah. Well, especially with, AI, Copilot. I hate to, I'm excited about all the opportunities of AI, and I think there's such a trend. I know I've seen some recently that are just so they're not really heartfelt, they're not really sincere. So I think the value has declined just because the tools available and the way they're being used. Um, so that's kind of my personal opinion on that. I don't know what Rex thinks.
I think there's so much, when we post a job, we get thousands of applicants here at PAX 8, right? And it's the tools and technology that are vetting those and trying to narrow it down to the ones that we should even read, right? So I think it's a lot less about the cover letter and a lot more about having the right words in the resume so that the AI can rise yours to the top. I'm not
Yeah.
aware if there's any consultants that help people with that yet, but I'll bet there's a job there somewhere.
That really leads to our next point, which is that experience is really becoming the most important thing in a job applicant's background, even more so than formal education. So I think that sort of speaks to that piece a little bit, because if you have the experience and that's in your resume, you don't need to talk about it maybe as much in your cover letter. I don't know. What do you think, Rex?
Well, it really depends on the role. Like in the
Mhm.
managed service provider community, right? If you need a level 3 engineer, somebody that can fix anything, you have to be looking for the years in the role, doing a job, solving problems. But at the same time, I don't like to hire for that position. I like to hire kind of interns and bring them into the organization and develop their culture while they're rising in their career and have them become my future level 3 engineers. And when I'm looking at the intern, I'm not looking for experience, but it all depends on the position that you need at the time. I
Well,
am
Definitely.
looking for things like Eagle Scout, right? Like somebody that put the
mm,
effort in and putting the effort into going through and finishing and graduating, a college or a trade school or something. I
yeah.
want to know that they can put that effort in consistent and finish.
And I think I'm kind of looking at experience being kind of not necessarily linear of the same thing, but kind of relatable skills that are maybe reflected from another opportunity to use those skills. We were just laughing the other day about how much experience things, especially in technology, are changing so much. Talk about AI and prompt writing. Um, you know, 10 years experience with server 25. I mean, some things just are not realistic to pull from experience, but where do you draw from relatable experience? But I think some of that in 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 a lot of positions, what you've done, and to Rex said, some of the extracurriculars as well.
Definitely. And I think, from my experience when I used to be a career advisor, I would talk to students so much about how important it is to do an internship and get that real world experience. So I think that's something too, if there's people that are wanting to switch careers or looking to get, you know, you know, as they're finishing their formal education, to get some of that experience to really amp up your ability to be competitive in the job market. Let's go through one more before we jump into our next segment. But this last one is about who you know continues to be a huge factor in getting a job, as internal referrals and internal promotions. So, what are your thoughts about that? About that networking piece, about how important it is to promote interns. I don't know. What do you think, Rex?
My first job at the grocery store was because of my one of my dad's fraternity buddies was you know
Who you know?
yeah, and then when I had Oli on, we talked about the fact that my uncle Charlie was one of Oli's great clients, and that's how that reference occurred. So I think it's really important that you are working those relationships because those are the people that know you the best and should be willing to recommend you.
And just like we talk
Definitely.
about in marketing, for a lot of our partners, the referral are always the best. I think a lot of that is very true. You kind of have an inside scoop of somebody's perspective, what they're like, um, who they are, and I think that's really becoming more and more relevant. Kind of identifying culture fit, values, and someone, and you kind of get that introduction. I think that reflects pretty well in as far as setting you up for an opportunity there. So always, yeah. Who you know is big.
Definitely. Well, this was a great conversation. Next up, we want to hear from Paxate's Manager of Talent, Chelle Morgan, all the way from Brisbane, Australia, on hiring in 2025. Let's take a look.
Here are the top 3 things you need to know when hiring in 2025. It's the new year, which means new opportunities to grow your business. It may also mean new opportunities to grow your team. In 2024, the market was still challenging to navigate, so in order to attract the best talent in 2025, we need to make sure that we have a plan to stay competitive in this ever-evolving market. This 3-part mini-series is going to be focused on attracting and retaining talent. We're here to save you time and money, increase efficiencies, and reduce risk of choosing the wrong candidate, or equally worse, losing a candidate because we took too long or we were unclear on what we're looking for. So let's jump in. Step 1 is all about creating that role brief. On screen is the role brief template that we use here at Paxate. These are the 6 most important areas that we need to think through and be clear on before we start the recruitment process. Top of the list is job title, but we're going to come back to this one as it's more detailed than what we may think. So let's start with salary. While salary may not be the only thing that a candidate considers, it's often one of the most important elements they review. In order for us to save both our time and the candidates and effectively benchmark the market, salary benchmarking is a critical step. But where do you start? The best place to start is identifying the minimum wage for your industry. Once we know that legal benchmark, we can then research the market to see ideally where our role needs to sit. At the beginning of the episode, we said that we're here to save you money. And when it comes to salary benchmarking, this is definitely an area where there are so many great online free resources. All great recruitment agencies have online salary guides for us to utilize. If you are wanting to use a paid data set, just make sure to do your research. Where do they source the data from? What's the depth of the survey? How wide ranging is that survey? And how often is that data updated, just to ensure that you get bang for your buck. We've also got great job boards out there. Seek is the strongest reference point that we use, as you've got salary benchmarking, and some companies also let you know exactly what they're paying. You've got LinkedIn, you've got Glassdoor and Indeed, where candidates will submit and tell you what roles they're going for and what the salary ranges look like. We are now in the world of AI, and ChatGPT is also a fantastic resource that we now have at the tip of our fingers. You can simply type into ChatGPT, what is the salary in 2025 for a solution engineer based in Brisbane? That's another great place to start before we hit the salary guides and look at the job boards if we're wanting a solid pin in the stake. Well, that's salary done. Now we're going to move on to the demographic audit. Whether it's a new or replacement role, recruiting for a role always provides us with a great opportunity to review our current team and if there are any areas which need to be amplified or maybe covered if they're currently missing in our team. Do we have a wide range of different lived experiences? Gender, nationality, skill sets, age, industry experience. The more diverse our teams are, the more opportunity we have of bringing diverse thinking and perspectives to the table. And what can be better than that? Currently, the tech industry sits at an average of 25 to 30% with female representation. So it's no surprise when I talk with our partners that attracting female candidates is high on their list. Would that be a high priority for you? If not, when you think about your recruitment goals for 2025, what would they look like? Have a think, and we're going to come back to it, as knowing what we're recruiting for is a really important part that's going to feature in our ads. Next is location. We've got on-site, hybrid, or remote. In 2024, we saw flexibility was key, with hybrid and remote the most commonly sought after arrangements. In our final episode in this series, we're going to cover employee benefits, and it's no surprise that flexibility is a high priority for a majority of candidates. Of course, though, there are some roles and industries which require on-site roles. If this is the case for you, no worries. We just need to be really clear on why the role is on-site, and we'll include that in the ad for transparency. Job title. Well, what's in a name? When it comes to recruiting, quite a lot. And this is a really important area that we need to carefully consider. On screen now, you are seeing the 155 weirdest job titles in 2024. This is there to make you laugh. It is certainly not there to inspire you, so please get no crazy ideas. When it comes to the job title, this is not the area for us to get creative. And I'll give you a recent example why. Late last year, I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I found a company advertising for a culture wizard. What do you think a culture wizard is? Over the Christmas break, when I was surveying my family and friends, most of them responded, oh, a HR role, probably a people advisor role, which makes sense, right, with the word culture being so featured. The role was actually for an office administrator. So if we take this as the example, the first thing we want to do with job title is to review how it's going to sit within the algorithm. What are the key words that candidates are searching for? If I'm an office administrator or looking for an office administrator role, that's the title and the words that I'm going to utilize in order to do my search. Now, yes, you can rig the system. You can put office administrator in the body of your ad and then culture wizard in the title. And will your job appear alongside other office administrators? Most likely. But this is where the second point we now need to consider. Would candidates want this title? If we go back to the demographic, who are we looking for? Terminology such as guru or wizard, most commonly referred to as masculine. So it's important that the title is inclusive and it attracts people to the role instead of deter people from applying. I don't know about you, but I don't want to hit parties on the weekend, and when people ask me what I do, I don't really want to say that I am a culture wizard. Let's also think about linking the job title to the salary. This is where we need to help out our candidates here, especially if we decide not to advertise the salary in the job ad. Candidates need to be able to estimate the salary bracket, and from memory, Culture Wizard wasn't featured on any salary guides I've recently viewed. Another thing to help out candidates that we can do is to list who the role is reporting to on the ad. This way we're assisting the candidate in understanding the level or seniority of the role. So what's the process for a job title? Where do we start? There are a lot of great online tools that we can use. Google Trends, ChatGPT are two great platforms that we can utilize. When it comes to the job title, we can research the market in the same way that we researched it for salary, by utilizing salary guides and job boards such as LinkedIn and Seek to see what others are using when it comes to a similar role. When it comes to the job title, this is the one area where we want to be the same as our competitors or like-for-like industries, because it means that our role is going to be easily found. Now we've reached the final area of our job brief. We're up to key skills and competencies. But you might be thinking, hang on, I also believe that there is still the interview process to cover. We're going to come back to the interview process in episode 3, so stay tuned. When it comes to skills, less is more. What do I mean by this? I recently read a Forbes article which outlined in 2023, Australia had an average of 7,000 IT degree graduates. By 2032, we will need 233,000 IT graduates. The bad news is that there has been a 12% decline in people enrolling in university in the last decade. So with that in mind, we now need to be more selective with what are truly the skills that we're asking for and the skills that are needed. Forbes recently asked businesses, what were the most valuable skills for IT professionals? On the screen, you can see that 55% said problem solving, critical thinking, and troubleshooting abilities were the most important. 52% said adaptability and willingness to learn. 40% felt effective communication was vital. I personally thought communication would have been higher, but if we now think of AI, platforms such as ChatGPT are fantastic resources to make us more efficient and effective communicators. So if you had to pick 5 skills for this role, what would they be? Out of the 5 skills, how many are technical or hard skills? And how many are soft skills? Why are they all non-negotiable? And this is a really good time for us to think about, why do we need these skills for this role? Why are we recruiting for this role? Do we have a problem that we currently can't solve? Or do we maybe have new opportunities that we can't seize because maybe we're missing the expertise or we're needing more hands? This is where we need to be crystal clear. When we really take a deep dive and hold ourselves accountable to really fine tune what we're asking for, must have versus nice to have, this is what gives us the clarity to help us find incredible talent that's in the market that may have been overlooked because we were looking for someone that was maybe super technical, or we're looking for a skill that we thought was necessary, but now we know that we can train them or we can look for other options. When we bring new team members in and we offer them the platform to be upskilled and to grow, this is part of what we're going to talk about in episode 3, is the best way to retain our team as we're providing them with growth opportunities. So now that we've done the hard work, we've created the plan, join us for episode 2 to turn that plan seamlessly into our job ad.
Well, I know we are really looking forward to the other two installments of this segment from Shell. So can't wait to see that. Rex, do you have any comments about this video and about posting job ads?
Oh my gosh, there was so much good information in there. The one thing that I don't think I heard was when economies are really good, you don't see a lot of people applying, and because they're happy in their jobs. And I find that we have to ratchet up like the excitement of come, please come find us. And we actually have to lower like our requirements, right? Like, if you're breathing, please apply, right? And then in other times in the economy, we find that we're just getting way too many applicants when we're hiring, and so you really ratchet up the requirements. So you have to have 12 years of college, right? Like, I know that's an exaggeration, but I have found when I'm hiring, I have to look at the quantity and quality of what I'm receiving and mess with those job descriptions quite a bit. Chris, what do you think?
Like you said, I think there's a lot of really good information. What stuck out for me out of all of it, I think, was there's a lot more effort and intention about knowing what you are looking for and that clarity, not just in the job title, in the description, but the skills you're looking for and why. Like, I think about what would make somebody successful in this role at your company. And I think, I think we take a lot of shortcuts. We get busy, and I think we kind of just fast track the job description, the basics, and then put it out there and kind of hope. But I think the more effort we put into understanding why we're hiring for it, what it really looks like, and what would make somebody successful, the better opportunities we're going to have with connecting with the right people to fill it. Bessie?
The one thing I really noticed was how much she mentioned using AI. I think that we think about that sometimes as someone that's applying to jobs. Oh, they can create their resume and their cover letter with AI. But thinking about someone that is hiring, how you can use AI not only with writing your job description, maybe, or it's figuring out your salary that you're going to post. There's so many different ways that you can use AI to help you streamline this process and make it hopefully a little less painful.
Yep.
Now, our next up is going to be Sales Pitch with Keith Marciano. Let's take a look.
Play ball. The game of baseball, it's a marathon, not a sprint. 162 games are played over 6 months. Add in spring training and the playoffs, a player could be looking at playing over 180 games over a 9-month period of time. To be the best, like Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, that just takes a different level, an internal drive that can't be taught. Hiring a winning salesperson can be challenging. Money is a key motivator, but the best need something besides money to make them successful. It's called drive. So let's touch all the bases on the 4 key drive components to look for in the interview. 1, desire to win, the need for achievement. This is the trait that helps salespeople exceed their quota. They ask questions. They have a history of being on teams or in sports, and they've experienced failure, by the way. 2, coachability. Are they always willing to learn new things? What have they learned about sales? Where have they learned it? What investments have they made in their sales career? 3, competitiveness. Focused on being the best at what they do. They have a hard work ethic and desire to excel in their career. Did they work in a sales department? How did they rank in their sales team? 4, optimism and perseverance. The expectation that they're going to win. They're ready to prove to the world that they're the best salesperson and that you made a good hire. What's the biggest obstacle you faced in your career and how'd you handle it? Tell me about a situation where you lost a major opportunity and what you learned from it. There's a couple good questions you can ask around this. The candidate can use perseverance and relationship skills to convince the interviewer that they're the right person. But that's not what you're hiring for. You're hiring for drive. Try to measure their competitiveness. Without drive, you can expect your sales hire to be average or below average. If you're looking to hire a salesperson and grow your MSP, reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can help.
Well, thank you so much, Keith, for that great sales pitch. I want to talk about just some of the top industries that are hiring in 2025. The first is technology, which is a good sign for all of us, banking and financial services, and energy. So, digital transformations are really creating a lot of demand for technology professionals, specifically in AI, cybersecurity, and data analysis. It's really important now more than ever to keep learning and being curious, upskilling, focusing on learning and playing with those AI tools, just staying informed and being curious and adapting to change and being proactive. Now, Rex, I know you have a really great interview question. Do you mind sharing it with us?
Well, there's really a couple that I make sure that I ask every time I'm interviewing somebody. One of them we've talked about 100 times. It's can you sell me this pen? But another one that I use, and Chris, do you mind being a guinea pig here?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So, and this might seem really simple, but I say, Chris, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. You asking just yes or no questions. Can you find that number?
Okay. So is the number greater than 50?
It is.
Okay. Is the number greater than 75?
So I'm going to go ahead and stop you.
Yeah. We got
good job, by the way.
There's better.
What I was going to say is you're going to get that number that I had in my head in 6 questions because you are dividing and conquering, right?
Mhm.
Very predictable way to troubleshoot any kind of a problem. And what I found is when I ask that question of engineers, especially engineers, like they have to naturally divide and conquer. And you guys should try this within your own teams, kind of confidentially go ask the different engineers in your company that question. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100, just yes or no questions. Can you find the number? And you will find that your best, most successful engineers will all naturally do that. They'll divide and conquer to get to the number. And, for me, the engineers that didn't solve problems very quickly and had issues where clients didn't want that particular engineer to come back, when I asked them that question, I got a lot of really weird answers. It was kind of like, is it the age of one of your children? Right. And I'm like, well, you look like you're whatever old and your kids would probably be around this age. But that was the logic that they were using when they were answering the question. Or they'd say, is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Right. And it was just amazing how much consistency I have found over the last close to 30 years. I've been using that question in the engineers that can solve problems quickly and the ones that can't. So I've decided that is a must answer, divide and conquer, when I'm talking to engineers. Doesn't necessarily apply to other parts of the organization. What do you think, Chris?
Awesome.
I love that, and I mean, we could just have an episode just about critical thinking and questions and culture questions. I think that could be a lot of fun as another segment, related to hiring in the process. Just thinking about the rise of what is here now that wasn't here 5 years ago. I think about jobs we never would have thought about. I think it just means that there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I think a big thing is not getting stuck in what we know and assuming that we're good or set. That I think so much is changing. We kind of have to have that attitude or that mindset of growth and learning and development. I think those skills, people that are very much in tune with that and developing those skills, I think are going to be a lot better off than somebody kind of in a static, or a fixed mindset of their skills and things like that. Bessie, I don't know what you've seen, like particularly in developing your course roadmap, what kind of things you're hearing from people where they think they need to go with their learning.
I mean, I think a lot of leadership skills are things to focus on. That's that's something that Rex, you've kind of taught me too, of how, our technical skills only last, I think you said like 3 years maximum or
3
something
years.
like that.
Yeah.
3 years. but leadership skills will continue to even if you're not in your title isn't a leadership title, that those leadership skills are going to help bring you forward throughout your career.
Now they
So I
compound
want
for a
to,
lifetime.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
Well, I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope to see you next time. Bye.